we're not. Don't have 5 members as yet, but we'll make a start with what we can. First of all, apologies from Tom Buchanan and Phil Flanagan. Any other apologies? Okay, members, as we don't have full quorum at the minute, we'll move to agenda item 8, which is the briefing from the Assembly Research and Information Service on the European Commission legislative work. So I've just asked Owen to come forward. Marl. Okay, members, so page 172 of your packs, and just Owen, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. As the committee is aware, this briefing is on the 2014 European Commission Work Programme and provides an update for Q2. In a review of published information from the European Commission, I have identified 3 legislative and 10 non-legislative proposals. And the committee may wish to note that the paper provided lists 11 non-legislative proposals, but following an additional search it was found that one of these, which was a recommendation on negotiations regarding the Forced Labour Convention, has actually been adopted. Of the 3 legislative proposals, the committee has been briefed on the Labour Mobility Package previously. The remaining 2 pieces of legislation are a recast of an existing regulation on the European Centre for the Development of Vocational Training and a regulation on the creation of a European Foundation for the Improvement of Living and Working Conditions. Both of these proposals are actually focused on governments and operation of existing agencies and have limited, if any, impact in Northern Ireland. And as a result, this briefing will focus on 2 non-legislative proposals which are of note to the committee. The 2 proposals to be discussed are the Community Framework for State Aid for Research and Development and Innovation, and Research and Innovation as New Sources of Growth. And if the committee has any questions about other areas, I'll be happy to answer them at the end. The first area I'm going to look at is the Community Framework for State Aid for Research and Development and Innovation. And this framework originally operated from January 2007 to the end of 2013 and provided conditions for Member States when granting aid to industry for research, development and innovation, which I'm going to refer to as RDI. It should be noted that under EU rules, state aid is prohibited in order to stop state subsidies distorting competition in the internal market. However, under some circumstances, state aid may be compatible with the internal market, with the Europe 2020 strategy identifying research and development as a key driver for growth across the EU. Indeed, Europe 2020 promotes the Innovation Union flagship initiative, which aims at improving framework conditions and access to finance for research and innovation in order to ensure that innovative ideas can be turned into products and services that create growth and jobs. State aid for RDI can be compatible with treaty rules in terms of ensuring market and failures are alleviated, and this is things such as RDI being at a lower level than necessary for economic growth or a lack of access to finance for different groups or industries. In the Communication on State Aid Modernisation, there was a call for a common approach in the revision of the different guidelines and frameworks based on strengthening the internal market, promoting more effectiveness in public spending through a better contribution by state aid to the objectives of common interest, and exercising greater scrutiny on the incentive effect, and limiting the aid to the minimum and on the potential negative effects of the aid on competition and trade. The revised framework discussed today is intended to establish a common approach, taking into consideration the findings of reviews on the previous framework. A draft framework was published on the 19th of December 2013, with a consultation on the document started on the 20th of December and ending on the 17th of February 2014. The intention of the document was to collect views on the first draft text of the revised framework. And there are 5 aid measures covered by the draft framework, and that's aid for R&D projects, aid for feasibility studies, aid for the construction and upgrade of research infrastructures, aid for innovation activities, and aid for innovation clusters. In addition, the framework will only consider state aid valid if it meets 7 criteria, and this includes the need for state intervention, the appropriateness of the aid measure, and the contribution to a well-defined object of common interest. The UK has already responded to this consultation, stating that it welcomes the Commission's approach to aid for research, development and innovation. This is an area with strong market failures at all levels, from the need for support for innovative startups to funding for large companies developing cutting-edge technologies. The UK therefore welcomes the enlarged range of support which can be block exempted. However, the UK has raised concerns regarding constraints within the framework that are placed on research and knowledge dissemination organisations, and these actually include universities. The Government stated in its response that it is vital that universities, innovation intermediaries and others involved in translational research are able to operate freely in this sphere without unnecessary state aid constraints. This may be of particular note to Northern Ireland's university sector, as a large portion of RDI is generated by our university sector, including working with companies through knowledge transfer partnerships and the commercialisation of research and innovation. The full impact of the changes to the framework will not be apparent until the publication of the fully revised text, and as stated in the revised framework document, it comes into force on the 1st of July of this year. It's also worth noting that Member States are invited to give their explicit unconditional agreement to the proposed appropriate measures within 2 months from the date of publication of this framework in the Official Journal of the European Union. If Member States do not reply, the Commission will assume that the Member State does not agree with the proposed measures. The draft framework does not state what the process is if a Member State does not agree with the measures, although it does make reference to the Commission being able to review or amend the framework if it deems it necessary. Second area we look at today is the research and innovation as new sources of growth. 2013 Annual Growth Survey, or AGS, identified the priorities at national level to support structural reform needed to ensure smart, sustainable and inclusive growth. 2 priorities of note identified by the AGS are driving innovation and improving the business environment. The communication, research and innovation as new sources of growth is intended to build on these 2 priorities and provide a thorough diagnosis of how the knowledge and innovation economy can strongly contribute to new sources of growth. The communication will provide a diagnosis of Europe's knowledge and innovation economy, and this will be based on an analysis of areas such as its economic performance in research and innovation and the impact of EU innovation policy. A robust evidence base in support of necessary increases in the efficiency of EU and national research and innovation systems, and this will help identify areas in need of structural reform investments needed to improve the innovation ecosystem. And a strategic analysis of the priority areas, where against the backdrop of the single market reform packages, it appears crucial for the EU and its member states to facilitate the development and exploitation of new technologies and innovations which allow the EU and its member states to compete in high-tech and fast-growing markets. The communication will address 3 main issues: that's sluggish growth and weak increase in productivity, persistent underinvestment in R&D in spite of AGS priority and smart fiscal consolidation, and a lack of strategic intention on the global growth markets of the future. It is expected that the communication will impact on 3 groups, and that's citizens through improved job creation and societal changes, companies via better framework conditions for innovation and thereby enhancements to competition, and public authorities through providing guidance for the reform agendas. It's expected that the communication will be adopted in the 2nd semester of 2014. However, a review of available information has found no further information as to when this can be expected. A key aspect of the Northern Ireland Economic Strategy is the development of a knowledge economy. This communication may be useful in further developing and enhancing the research and innovation sector in Northern Ireland. And again, to what extent this may be of use will of course be depending on the overall contents of the report. And if the committee has any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Sean. Any evidence yet, or what feelings are you getting from drawdown from Horizon 2020 from R&D?
In total for Northern Ireland? Or?
Yeah, is there any?
I think the total amount is available for the whole of Europe, something like 74 billion. In terms of what it's going to be in country-to-country basis, I don't know. I can certainly check for you and see if there's any further information regarding it.
Maybe just to see how, I know the Minister said he was, I think, setting up a special task force to make sure he was getting as much coming down. Are you aware if there are any results of that yet? Or?
No, nothing. No. I can check for that and put a paper together for you.
Okay. Members, any questions on that? No. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, members, just back onto the agenda then. Chairperson's business. Members, suppose at this point would just, as a committee, maybe reflecting on the passing of David McClarty, who was a member of this committee, and I know he actually never got to sit on it. I know many of us knew him through the Assembly and all the rest of it. Just to let you know, members, that we, on behalf of the committee, I sent a letter to David's family, letter of condolence, to mark that, and Claire will be joining the committee from next week as well, so as a replacement. Okay, members, just Work and Families Bill, just advise members that the Work and Families Bill had its first stage on the 28th of April and is set to have a second stage on the 12th of May and come to the committee then officially on the 13th of May. As members have been advised, the officials will meet informally with the committee after this meeting to discuss the bill prior to the second stage. Okay, members, at page 5 of the pack, as the committee has no meeting on the 14th of May, can I seek agreement for the Delegated Powers Memorandum for the bill to be forwarded to the examiner's statutory duties on the 13th of May? Great, thank you. The committee has already agreed its plans for consulting on the bill, and this will begin as soon as the committee stage is reached, and that's the 13th of May. We have our draft press release now prepared. Is the committee content that the consultation period is for 6 weeks? Well, that will make the closing date the 23rd of June.
Yeah.
Content. Okay, members, thank you. Members, draft minutes of our last meeting are at page 33 of your packs. Do you agree that those are an accurate record of that meeting? If so, I'll sign those. Being correct. Members, just matters arising from the minutes then are at page 40. Just to note, members, or is there any other matters arising? Okay, just take them as put forward. Members' correspondence then starts at page 45 of your packs on its table. Members, just to note, page 49 is the correspondence from the Student Orange Society declining the committee's offer to meet to discuss issues they raised regarding the University of Ulster Jordanstown campus. If you will remember, members, they contacted us to come in front of the committee, and we offered them a meeting with the chair and vice chair and any other members who wished, but they've since declined. Content to note? Okay. Members, at page 57 is correspondence from Triangle Housing Association wishing to host a visit to its progression to employment service for people with learning disabilities in Ballymoney as part of the committee's inquiries. Are members content that we schedule this?
Yep.
Thanks, Paul. Members, page 60 is correspondence from Synergy Training in Northern Ireland requesting a meeting with the committee, Synergy and 2 other training organisations to discuss their concerns regarding the procurement for the Steps to Success programme. Members, are you content to meet them in an informal setting, or do you want in front of the committee? Informal setting, Pat? Just
Formally, yeah.
informal.
Yeah.
Okay. Members.
I want to forward to the department for comment as well.
Yeah, we'll forward it to the department just to see what they're saying in this moment in time. Members, at page 63 is correspondence forwarded by Daphne Mackay, MLA, for the committee's consideration from an individual made redundant by MyVan regarding the fact that redundancy payment has not yet been paid. Members, you content me forward this to the department for action and comment. Members, at page 65 is a departmental response regarding the training of coded welders in Northern Ireland. Members, anything to note?
Chair.
Chair, just stay.
Right.
Go ahead.
I think at the last meeting, Chris Little said that they was arranging a meeting with the Minister,
Yep.
discuss some of those issues relating to East Belfast. So once that meeting takes place, we'll certainly come back to you and let you know the response.
Bronwyn?
Chair, regarding the report for advanced manufacturing and engineering services, could we get a copy of that, or maybe get it reissued if
Certainly.
we haven't already got it?
Yep, no problem. We'll ask for that.
Yep.
Okay, members, at page 74 is the departmental response regarding the initial teacher education structure review. A list of all responses the department received to its consultation is in the letter, along with the information on the respondents by constituency, and as was agreed with the department, a full copy of all the submissions has been issued to members as a confidential pack. Members, you have received that. If members haven't, if maybe not, just picked it up if you speak to Vincent or Kathy. Has been emailed out. Okay, members. Members, we're moving on then with 7 invitations to the committee. An invitation from the Post-19 campaign to its conference on alternative post-19 provision for young people with severe learning disabilities. That's the 14th of May at the Island Hall, Lisburn Civic Centre, 9:30. Members, unfortunately, it clashes with a committee meeting. Or committee meeting, would the committee be content that we send the clerical supervisor to attend on our behalf and just bring back any feedback? Okay, thank you. Members' invitation from the department to attend the Apprenticeship of the Year Awards, again on the 14th of May in Hillsborough Castle at 12 p.m. Again, it's one of our committee days. All members are invited. Member page 52 is an invitation from the Skill Exchange UK to attend the launch of the Skill Exchange Northern Ireland on the 8th of May in Ulsterbank, Donegal Square, East Belfast at 11:30 a.m. Members, everybody's invited if anybody wants to attend, if they speak to the clerk. Then page 54 is an invitation from the Northern Ireland European Regional Forum to attend a master class in Erasmus Plus, the programme for education, training, youth and sport on the 20th of May, Malone House, Barnes Domains, Belfast at 12:30. Members, again, it's an open invitation to anybody. Members, page 157, invitation from Intertrade Ireland, an all-island innovation programme to attend a lecture and a series of master classes in innovation yesterday and today, so that's already ongoing, members. Members, page 158 is an invitation from Northern Ireland Assembly and Business Trust to attend a briefing to the importance of Europe on the 13th of May in room 115 at 5 p.m. Again, all members are invited. Members, page 159 is an invitation from NISCA to attend a spring conference on the 28th of May in the Glenavon Hotel, Cookstown at 12 p.m. That's a committee day as well.
Yeah.
That's also a committee day as well, members, so we'll send our apologies. Okay, members, then just to note as well, the table, there's the Queen's University Belfast invitation for the annual Volunteer and Excellency Awards on Monday the 9th of June in the Great Hall. This invitation is being extended to myself and members I hopefully will attend. So. Okay, members, action is agreed, suggested is agreed unless...
Chair, sorry,
Wrong.
the correspondence regarding transport,
Where are you?
page 64, I don't know if...
Okay.
Right, that's obviously still ongoing, but could we maybe write to the department and ask them for a completion date of that report? And also as well, would there be any possibility of getting a breakdown by council area or constituency area? I think that would be important.
Yeah, and to the research and the current funding proposals is there, Bruno, the potential gaps.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's grand, thanks.
no problem, we'll do that. Okay, members, anything else from correspondence? Okay, members, draft forward work programme is at page 162 of the packs and it's scheduled up until the 2nd of July. Members, just to be aware, other briefings may be scheduled as they arise. Members, agenda item 7 is subordinate legislation. It's the SR 2014-116, the Student Fees Amounts Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland 2014. That's at page 165 of your pack. The Department has laid a statutory rule on the 29th of April 2014. The Department proposes to make a statutory rule to provide for the annual increase using the inflationary forecast of 3.34% for the academic year 2015-16, provided by Treasury to the prescribed basic and higher amounts which higher education institutions in Northern Ireland may charge to students who are ordinarily resident in Northern Ireland and accepted others. The proposed inflationary increases are in line with the Minister's announcement in September 2011. The following agreement with the Northern Ireland Executive, the cap on higher education fees for Northern Ireland students and accepted others studying in Northern Ireland will be maintained at current levels, subject only to annual inflationary increases. The statutory rule is subject to negative resolution and is due to come into operation on the 1st of September 2014. The committee considered the proposal to make the statutory rule at its meeting the 9th of April 2014 and agreed that it was content with the proposal. There has been no change to the policy content since the proposal was submitted, and the examiner statutory rule has no issues to raise. Are members content with this rule? 1st of September 2015, sorry, that comes into operation. Members' apologies. If so, the Committee for Employment and Learning has considered SR 2014-116, the Student Fees Amounts Amendment Regulations Northern Ireland 2014, and has no objection to the rule. Members agreed? Okay, members, moving on then. We've already had the briefing from Owen, so we'll move to our agenda item number 9, which is the departmental briefing an update on departmental European policy developments, including the European Social Fund 2014-2020. Members, electronic devices. All electronic devices should be switched off, excluding tablet devices, as this session will be recorded by Hansard. Members, can I just welcome Mr. Colin Jack, the Director of Strategy, European and Employment Relations Division, Mrs. Patricia McVeigh, Head of the European Policy Branch, and Mrs. Breeze Rainey, ESF Future Funding. Folks, you're very welcome this morning. Colin, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. I'll start first with talking about the European Social Fund programme, where we are currently working on the development of the operational programme for the new round of funding, which, as members will be aware, the round of funding is labelled 2014 to 2020, but the process of member states and regions agreeing their operational programmes only happens during the first year of the programme, so we wouldn't expect significant spend under the programme until what for us will be the 2015-16 financial year. But we had a consultation exercise on the structure of the programme over the summer last year, and the responses that we received, as the committee has been informed, I think 2 or 3 times already, were broadly supportive of the structure of the programme that we proposed. So the operational programme, which is the technical document that is being put together at the moment, will be based closely on the structure set out in the consultation document. The first stage in terms of the submission of our proposals to the Commission was actually the element covering our social fund programme, which was included in the UK partnership agreement. Each member state is required to submit a partnership agreement to the Commission covering the whole range of structural funds programmes. The UK partnership agreement is led by the Department for Business, Innovation and Skills, and it was submitted to the Commission on the 17th of April, which was 2 months later than had originally been planned. There were some issues, I think, really that were English issues rather than issues relating to any of the devolved administrations that held that up. But that having been submitted, we are now in a position where we can submit the operational programme any time up to the 17th of July. There's a 3-month period within which we can submit the programme, and we are on track to do that. It will need to be considered by the Executive in June before submission. In terms of the arrangements for administering the programme, we've had a series of discussions with representatives of local government, both officials and representatives of NILGA, and that has really focused on ensuring that there is complementarity between the European Social Fund programme and the activities of councils at local level. So we're seeking to design the process for selecting projects to ensure involvement from local government and make sure that there's a better strategic fit between what we are supporting under the ESF and not just local government programmes, but other DEL programmes and programmes from other departments. So in terms of the process that remains with the ESF, we intend, as I said, to submit the operational programme well before the deadline of the 17th of July. And then we also, in parallel with that work, we're designing the process for the call for applications under the programme, because we do want funding to be available as soon as the current round of funding finishes. We have allocated funding to projects up to the end of March 2015, so we want there to be no gap in provision. That means that we really need to run the application process during the autumn, and we expect there to be a closing date of early November, and we will emphasise the opportunities that the new ESF programme will offer through a series of road shows around the region. And as I've mentioned, we are anticipating a more strategic approach than in the past. We have a number of priorities within the programme. Last time round, we had just 2, and there was one open call for applications. We have this time round a number of specific strands, one targeting young people not in education, employment or training. Then there's one for people facing other barriers to employability. Really, I suppose you could describe that as an economic inactivity strand. We then have under priority 2, we intend to support work building on the Community Family Support Programme, which has been supported as one of the Delivering Social Change signature projects. And then we also, under that priority 2, which is the social inclusion strand, intend to support programmes promoting employability for people with disabilities and learning conditions. And then priority 3 of the programme will be building on the work we've supported under the current programme on apprenticeships, and it will take into account the reviews that are underway of apprenticeships and youth training. So that's really the European Social Fund element. I can either take questions on that now, or I can go on with the broader European policy section, whichever suits.
I think Colin, just go on and we'll
Just
take
carry on.
questions and hold on together. Yeah.
All right, okay. In terms of then, I suppose, in terms of the DEL engagement and the Barroso Task Force working group on European policy, I mean, the major focus, I suppose, for all the work of the Barroso Task Force has been on increasing Northern Ireland's drawdown of competitive EU funding, and we had the target under the programme for government to increase the drawdown by 20% over the life of the programme for government. Obviously, with the extension of the Assembly term, there's work underway now to consider extension of the programme for government for a further year, and there is consideration being given across departments to what that means for the the target for increased drawdown of competitive funds. The current the performance to date in terms of the 20% target has been very positive, and we anticipate that the 20% target will be exceeded. DEL has had a major role in that. We are actually the department with the biggest drawdown of competitive funding to date, and that's largely due to the opportunities that are available. We're a major contributor under Framework Programme 7, which has been the research programme up to now, where we have been responsible for 35% of drawdown there. We've also been responsible for around 65% of drawdown under the Lifelong Learning Programme, which under the previous round of funds had a number of strands: Erasmus, Leonardo, Grundtvig, and so on. We have cumulative drawdown of competitive funding over the years 2011-12 to 2013-14 of around 24 million. So that's a DEL contribution of 24 million to an overall drawdown of around 72 million across the executive. We're now in a period of transition to new programmes. So the Erasmus Plus and Horizon 2020 programmes have been getting up and running this year. That may have some short-term impact on the drawdown levels because the new programmes are only getting up and running. And also, in fact, there were some issues towards the end of the previous programmes of additional calls for applications being issued, which meant that the opportunities were in fact greater than had originally been envisaged. So it may be that we're not going to see a kind of uniform level of increase across the, as we move into the new funding period. There may be a slight dip for a short time before we resume, increasing allocations. It'll take a bit of time for those applying for the funds to get used to the new application processes and assessment criteria. For some of the lifelong learning programmes, there was a very short period of notice given by the Commission about the application processes and so on. But nonetheless, there's been a lot of effort put into encouraging the likes of FE colleges, universities and others to apply for the competitive funding. So, our hope would be that they were well placed to put applications in whenever the opportunities for funding open. So it's a bit difficult at the moment to predict what the drawdown for 14-15 will be, but the efforts are continuing to maximise the drawdown. In terms of Erasmus+, it's a single programme that replaces the individual programmes under lifelong learning. The managing authority for the UK is the Department for Business Innovation and Skills, but the national agency which administers the decentralised actions under the programme is a consortium of the British Council and an organisation called Ecoris, and Dell has a representative, it's Patricia, on the Erasmus Plus programme board, which is chaired by BIS. So that's actually a development from the previous round of funding. So we hope it'll give us a better opportunity to steer issues at UK level in terms of the development of Erasmus Plus. We are also intending to establish a Northern Ireland focus group with key relevant stakeholders to consider issues in relation to Erasmus Plus here. We're also having meetings with counterparts and with the national agencies in the Republic, just to, I suppose, increase the opportunities for cooperation on a north-south basis in terms of accessing the new rounds of Erasmus Plus. And indeed, that follows on from a successful seminar that we had at the end of January, where we brought together the FE colleges with the Institutes of Technology from the south in terms of alerting them to the opportunities under all the competitive funding programmes. And we know that there are some new cooperative ventures that have been started on the back of that initiative, and we're looking forward to hearing of some successful applications resulting from it. We also recently met with Ecoris, who are part of the national agency, just about how we will get information about drawdown under the new programme. There are some issues we'll need to overcome in terms of data protection about the applicants and so on, but we're trying to make sure that we have the information to report to ministers and to the Assembly on the levels of drawdown for Northern Ireland, because obviously this is a programme where we're not in direct drive, so we need to get the information from others. In terms of Horizon 2020, and this came up in Owen's session, an infrastructure to support applicants in pursuing funding has been put in place. There's a series of Northern Ireland contact points in particular subject areas that has been established. They've now been in place for about a year, and are rapidly establishing networks and getting concrete cooperation started. So those are the main issues on the funding opportunities. Just in terms of the Northern Ireland Executive Office in Brussels, there was a competition in the spring for new liaison officers to replace the desk officers who had been there previously. The competition has appointed, I think, 2 new desk officers, but there's still one of the posts to be filled, and so the capacity of the Brussels office is not quite at its full level yet, and we hope we'll be in a position to brief the committee further on how that develops next time we're here. Then finally, the last thing that I'll mention is we have just recently been advised that Commissioner Laszlo Andor, who is the Employment and Social Affairs Commissioner in the Commission, is visiting Northern Ireland. It's a very short visit on the 20th of May. He's literally got about an hour and a half, but he'll be meeting with our Minister and with the junior ministers in OFM, DFM, just to discuss a range of issues in terms of how we're tackling youth unemployment, how we propose to meet the requirements of the Youth Guarantee, and just how Northern Ireland intends to take forward the work building on the Barroso Task Force. That's following on from a couple of meetings that the Minister has had with Commissioner Andor in Brussels, and we know that the Commission has been quite impressed with the work we've been doing in Northern Ireland under the European Social Fund, in particular the conference that was held in November last year, and there will be an opportunity for Commissioner Andor to engage with some young people who were involved with that conference during his visit. So that's really all I have to say by way of introduction. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Colin. I suppose quite impressed with the drawdown that Dell does bring down from Europe. But I suppose the question then reflects is how reliant is the department on those funds continually?
Well, certainly, I mean, they make a significant difference. I mean, the Horizon 2020 budget is the biggest research budget in the world. We're not perhaps as reliant as our counterparts in the south, because my understanding is they don't have national research funds as such. They really encourage the institutions there to fund the bulk of the research from Horizon 2020. We would have funds from within the Dell budget for research, so in a sense the money under Horizon 2020 is genuinely additional, but it does, I mean, the way in which it's structured, it encourages international cooperation, it encourages different institutions to work together, so it does add value to the research funding that we have ourselves. I don't have the precise figures for our own research budget, but we can get those for the committee if you would like them.
Just not just no Horizon 2020, the lifelong learning funding then, and even no ESF funds, and was underpinning those with educational needs and difficulties. If there's money there for research, is there enough money then if that European funding was either unsuccessful or wasn't available? Is there enough within the department to keep those programmes running?
Well, I mean, Horizon 2020 is a research budget. I mean, we have our own, as I said, we've research budgets that...
there's much more to the social side of things from lifelong learning, the ESF on supporting those with education.
Well, I mean, there are different budgets. I mean, the ESF is part of the structural funds.
How dependent is the department on that European money? Well, those programmes?
The European Social Fund accounts for something like, and whenever you take into account also the matched funding, it accounts for about 7% of Dell's overall budget. So it's not massively dependent, but it's enough to make a real difference to the groups and organisations that benefit from it and the programmes that are supported by it. So, I mean, if we look at the size of the new European Social Fund programme that we're expecting, we consulted on 183 million euros of ESF that we expected to receive. We understand that figure is likely to be adjusted slightly upwards to take account of inflation. So it'll be roughly a €200 million ESF allocation over 7 years. Whenever you add in the match funding, that comes to somewhere between 450 and 500 million euros over the 7-year period. So when you think that the DEL overall budget is somewhere in the region of 800 million pounds a year, it is a significant allocation of money.
The community framework for state aid for research and development and innovation. There was an EU Commission paper dated 18th of December that gave member states were actually invited to give their explicit unconditional agreement to the proposed measures. What action did the department take on that?
Well, the department wasn't, Chair, consulted directly, but from a DEL perspective, in terms of state aid, that would primarily fall to DETI. Even in terms of R&D, my understanding is that it's more appropriate to R&D in relation to companies or where there's a competitiveness, whereas primarily the R&D that the department's involved in with the universities would be described as more further away from the labour market or competitive and more blue sky thinking. But equally, the department's position would be represented by BIS. So assumption is that DETI would be in discussions with BIS on this, as BIS would be representing the UK. So we don't see the state aid element that's under discussion at the minute having a significant impact or any impact potentially on the department's funding of R&D within the university.
Right, so it was left to BIS or DETI as far as the learning was concerned. Okay, Sammy.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks very much for the presentation so far, and also for the wee report you did for us. Colin, could I just bring you back to a couple of things you mentioned about Erasmus Plus and Horizon 2000? You talked about a dip initially in Northern Ireland's drawdown. Could you tell us a bit more about that? Because you also talk in the same context about the promotion of the programme through the various departments in it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the dip is really, I mean, in a sense, we're speculating about that at the moment. The new programmes have just opened up this year. The previous programmes ended, and the deadlines for applications under some of the programmes were in sort of February, March, April, but that was only announced in January. So there wasn't very much time given for institutions to apply. Now, certainly we had encouraged institutions to think about how they might benefit from the funding, and there was a fair bit of information available about the general structure of the programme and what it was about. So, I mean, we hope there won't be too much of a dip, but there's a likelihood that there will be a little bit of a dip just because of the short notice that institutions got of the application opportunity.
There are some other issues, if I can add. For example, when there were distinct programmes, for example, Erasmus standalone programme, Grundvik, Leonardo, etc., an organisation like a college could apply for a Leonardo programme or Grundvik programme, etc. Well, now they only have an opportunity to apply once under Erasmus Plus. So whereas you might have had 4 applications this time, you have 1. So you have to consider how you can actually articulate all that you want to do under one application. So that will be a learning process, and so that's a learning for them in terms of then there may be a reduction on applications. The system's changed, as Colin said. They now have to go through a new IT system, a portal system. I think there's not a lot of hand-holding or detailed information available. So that's why we're anticipating a dip in year 1. And the more we become aware of the issues and the problems, the more we would want to address those and then expect a better performance in year 2.
But in terms of the promotion that you asked about as well, I mean, we're working ourselves, but we're also working in partnership with whoever we can, really, in terms of alerting institutions and indeed others who are eligible for this funding, because I mean, there's some strands of it. For example, there's a youth strand of Erasmus Plus that even individual groups of young people can apply for. So, I mean, we're working with the national agency, which is the British Council and Decories. We're also working with organisations like Colleges NI, and we're working with the Northern Ireland European Regional Forum in terms of alerting the kind of wider group of potential applicants to the opportunities. And I mean, the national agency, we're certainly working with them to get assurance about the level of support and advice that potential applicants can receive.
Right. And you mentioned about the national agencies, and I think you have a meeting planned with the national agency in the Republic of Ireland. How do you think that will improve Northern Ireland's performance?
Well, there's 2 agencies in operating, and I have already met one of them, and really it's about lessons learned, you know, how they moving forward with the new programme. Can we learn anything from them around promotion, around support? Have they come up with any issues? So it's that sharing of information so that we can then be better informed, so that we can help our constituents. And if we can also work together in terms of, Colin said, in partnerships. For some of the EU funding, say you need 3 partners. Well, Northern Ireland's really well placed because we may already have developed partnerships with colleagues in the south, and that's another UK, member state. So it's looking about all those opportunities and maximising whatever we can going forward.
And finally, I know it's not your call, Colin, but you mentioned about the meeting with the Commissioner, and I think it's the junior ministers and the Minister. Would there be any chance, or what would your view be on the likes of our Chair and Vice Chair maybe attend that? Because, I mean, one of the big issues that we have raised on a number of occasions is youth unemployment. And obviously, the Minister's already spoken to the Commission about that. But I think that would be good for if the Chair was available and the Vice Chair to attend that. I
mean, I do know that the arrangements are being coordinated by the Commission's office in Belfast, but I do know the Commissioner's in a very tight time frame. I know he has to leave Belfast by 10:30 in the morning on the 20th, so he really has a very short opportunity. But I mean, if you wanted to make
if we could piggyback on that, I mean, that's what I'm saying, not a separate meeting.
You could do so through the Commission office in Belfast.
Yep.
And I can certainly mention it to them, but I told the Commission office that I would be advising the committee of the visit today, but certainly it's building on a couple of visits the Minister has had to Brussels, and indeed the junior ministers from OFMD-FM have met him in Brussels as well. This is really part of a tour that he's making of, I think, quite a number of places in Europe before the term of the current Commission ends, which coincides with the European elections. So,
2 days later.
Indeed. You could call it a farewell tour, I think.
2 days worth.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Okay.
Bronwyn?
Thank you for your presentation. First of all, when you mentioned earlier on about colleges, and I think you said universities being well encouraged to draw down funding, maybe it would be important for our scrutiny role to get a sense of who did and who didn't. And if they didn't, then maybe why not, given the fact that we have a 20% drawdown figure. Regarding meeting the national agency in the 26 counties, could you give us a wee bit more detail of what you did actually learn from that meeting?
Well, obviously, I mean, their structures are very different because one of the national agencies there is the Higher Education Authority. So they already have a funding relationship with that sector. So they already have a distinct, very different relationship. So what we learned about their promotion, they're inviting us to their promotional events. They've also extended an opportunity for some of my team to go down to their team and look at their help desk, how it works, how the application process works, what the issues are. So we're going to do, you know, the practical things as well. So we're going to avail of that opportunity. That's the higher education sector, and we're also going to meet Leargas, who are the agency who look after the voluntary and community sector, to learn from them again on what issues they have and if there's anything practical as well that we can gauge.
Okay. I know we got a report, and I'm not sure if this fits in the All-Ireland research-based programme, and it appeared to be very impressive, and I know that there was job creation out of that as well. I'd appreciate it if you could maybe send us a report of that engagement. I think that would be important.
Right, no problem.
Bronwyn, is that the drawdown under the new programmes? You're looking clarity on?
No, the engagement with the national agency, you know, and what you actually learned from that to help us draw down.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, just in terms of the first part of your question about you know, colleges and universities and which ones you know, have benefited or will benefit in the future and which haven't. I mean, it's a clear expectation coming from the department that all the colleges and institutions of higher education will apply for and hopefully receive competitive funding. There is a process that they have to go through before they can make applications. It's the Erasmus Plus Charter,
And they've
all signed up for that. So, I mean, that's the first step. There is information available on the internet about drawdown under the previous programmes. Some of it, for example, would be on the British Council website, and there are lists of applicants and where they came from, you know, you can see there what the historic pattern has been of the different institutions benefiting from, for example, Erasmus.
Yeah, and we do, as a, you know, as a department, collect information from, for example, colleges, and so we do know who has and who hasn't. And we do ask those questions, and going forward the expectations will increase, and we'll be asking more questions. And if there's particular difficulties or whatever, certainly we'd be working with them to address those.
Okay, can you provide that information to the committee, Patricia? That's just...
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Members, anybody else? Okay, folks, thank you very much.
Right. Thank you.
Find a local. Good morning, folks. You're very welcome to the committee. Members, we're on agenda item 10, which is page 189 of your packs, is the briefing from Colleges NI on youth training. And can I just welcome Mr Gerald Campbell, Chief Executive, Colleges NI, Mr Brian Doran, Chief Executive, Southern Regional College, Mr Justin Edwards, Assistant CEO and Director of Curriculum for Belfast Met, and Ms Karen Lennon, Policy and Public Affairs Managers, Colleges NI. Folks, you're very welcome. I know you have two briefings in front of us this morning. The next one's in review of apprenticeships. So if we do the first one and take questions, then we'll move on to the second one. So over to you.
Chair, thanks very much for the opportunity to come along this morning and brief the committee on both the review of youth training and the review of apprenticeships. There will probably be some elements which will have a crossover between that, but I think we've been here quite a few times over the last number of months what I would propose is moving probably pretty swiftly into a brief update on the review of youth training, which my colleague Brian Doran is going to give some points, open it up for some questions, and thereafter Karen and Justin are going to give some information on the review of apprenticeships.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Can I say at the outset that the colleges NI welcome the Department's review in youth training. It's very much pertinent to the needs of further education, and if I can set that in the context of our provision currently before going into some of the comments around the review itself. There are over 9,000, nearly 9,200 young people currently attending further education colleges. That represents 56% of the full-time cohort within the sector who are attending further education or training at level 2 or below. Of that, 63%, 5,700, would be attending further education programmes at level 2, and a further 3,400 attending training. So we're dealing here with a very sizable cohort of young people who leave school at 16 years of age, and for which the colleges are making provision. Now, whilst the college's preference would be to be very much focused on provision at level 3 and above, we clearly have an identified need here. Young people who are exiting schools, many of whom don't have what we might deem to be the minimum requirements for progression to level 3, be that 5 GCSEs at grade C or above. Now, their needs are actually complex and quite challenging in relation to the provision in further education colleges. Now, if we perhaps just examine some of the characteristics of the young people coming through into further education and training within the colleges. Many of those young people, as I said, have not met the requisite standard by means of entrance requirements for provision at level 3 in further education. Many have not secured apprenticeships and therefore are opting to undertake study at Skills for Work level 2. Many are actually undecided by way of a future career path. And also we have a significant number of young people who progress from level 1 provision within FE, and therefore the level 2 provision that we offer provides opportunities of progression for them. So if we set that in the context of the cohort of young people that we're actually addressing, and indeed in the context therefore of this youth training review, there are indeed many challenges that lie ahead. So I'd like to highlight some of the key points in the Colleges NI submission. First of all, and again coming back to this issue of the complexity and the challenges that we all face, any training offer at level 3 we believe must be truly vocational. To use that term, truly vocational. By that I mean that we must look very closely at the qualifications issue, and my colleague Justin will probably make reference to qualifications that are central to the youth training review itself. We are also conscious that we need to be ensuring that delivery is in the right environment, where resources are appropriate, be that the human or the physical resources, so that individuals who are delivering have very much an industry background and therefore are able to commit to programmes that are relevant to the future economy here in Northern Ireland. We also would be advocating a broader provision to ensure that addressing the literacy and numeracy needs, because many of the young people of those 9,000 I've made reference to, many of them have not or do not have the level 2 equivalent of GCSE in literacy, numeracy or indeed ICT. But also, what's an important feature of any future provision will be placement, work placement in industry. And that in itself leads to further challenges. That placement opportunity must be well structured, and it must therefore have the buy-in and the involvement of employers. That in itself therefore leads to pointing us towards a greater level of partnership between sector skills councils, the employers and indeed providers, including the colleges. We also will be advocating the use of very much the project work being the fundamental component of any future level 2 provision, to ensure that applied and contextualised learning is very much based within project work. So the employer engagements I've mentioned, a critical issue here. And also, if we look at what the academic pathway is through GCSE and A-levels, we have very much a simplified route, well understood, well accepted route by both employers, parents and young people. But we have to say that we don't have such a clear and simplified progression route when it comes to vocational education and training. And one of the points that we make in our submission to the department is around the creation of what we refer to as a TVET model, a technical vocational education and training model. Now, that model is about creating a pathway that provides a simplified approach to ensuring that vocational provision, be it at level 2, offered progression opportunities through apprenticeships and further education at level 3 and indeed above. And again, my colleague Justin will make comments in relation, and Karen, in relation to the apprenticeships. A further point is the recognition that careers education advice and guidance is very much a core of our need in relation to any future youth training provision. And we welcome the fact that the expert panel has been established to look at this very matter. But I would make one further point, and that is that careers education advice and guidance, it is about pre-entry advice and guidance. So therefore we need to ensure that young people, parents, indeed are aware of the opportunities that would be open to them through the youth training programme. But equally important is the fact that careers education advice and guidance is a continuum. It must not stop at the point of entry. It must be part and parcel of any future youth training provision itself. I'd make one further point in relation to progression, and that is that we must ensure that provision at level 2 offers clear progression pathways through to apprenticeships and indeed further education at level 3. And Chairman, if you recall from a previous submission we made around, for example, the electrical, there are some issues in relation to some areas where the framework for apprenticeships doesn't exist at level 2, and therefore we must ensure under the youth training programme that that particular cohort of young people again are catered for. One last point I would make is in relation to the fact that the colleges are very much proactively engaged in supporting local schools in the delivery of the entitlement framework. And if we look at the performance of colleges in this regard, we have over 10,000 young people who attend the colleges on a day release basis undertaking vocational provision. And when we look at the retention and the success rates over recent years of the provision offered by colleges, 98% retention rates, achievement rates of 90% plus, that shows that something's working here. And that is that young people for whom the academic route is not necessarily the best route, they do respond when offered the opportunity to actually undertake vocational education and training at Key Stage 4 between the ages of 14 and 16. But that's important in the context of youth training. And while this review is looking at provision between 16 to 18 for school leavers, that comes back to Jerry's point, I think we have to look at this review in the context of other reviews, and that includes the reviews of GCSE A-level and also the apprenticeship review. We firmly believe that if we can expand and increase that engagement with young people at 14 to 16, the numbers of young people coming through without the requisite qualifications will be reduced over time. So therefore that is an issue certainly we would be encouraging both the Department for Employment and Learning and the Department of Education to actually look at, and it points towards the real need for a joined up 14 to 19 strategy when it comes to education and training. Chair, that concludes the main points I wanted to present to the committee, and I'm happy to take and field any questions at this point.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Brian, I think you touched on careers, education, information and guidance, which I'm sure you're fully aware this committee spent a long time on, and it's something we saw the value in. Are colleges succeeding in giving the correct careers, education, advice and guidance to their students as they enter the door, never mind when they leave it?
It's a good question, and certainly the colleges represented here, I know, and I'm speaking from my own college, but we work to ensure that every single full-time student that enters the doors of Southern Regional College will be undergoing what we call a pre-entry advice and guidance interview process. And that's about sharing information with the young person, informing the young person about the programme of study to which they've applied. We will be looking at, again, issues around progression and employment opportunity before that young person takes up a place at the college. We certainly believe that, and we demonstrate that through, for example, the standards of careers education and guidance, for example, the Matrix Award that our own college holds. We very much favour that type of improved quality of careers education, advice and guidance. But of course, like any organisation, we can improve the yard. But what's increasingly important to us is ensuring that that careers education, the information that is provided to the young person, is with that young person well in advance of them even considering applying to a further education college, or for that matter any other training provider. And that, I think, it remains the challenge, that independence and impartiality in relation to careers education advice and guidance.
I appreciate you've given us the Southern Regional Colleges view. You're here as Colleges NI.
Yep.
Is there a collaborative approach? Is there?
Yeah, what I can share is, and again it comes through the collaborative network that exists across Colleges NI, all of our careers managers are meeting and therefore sharing best practice. So there is a level of collaboration and best practice imparted right across the 6 regional colleges. Yes, Chair.
Justin, did you want to?
I was just going to mention, Chair, I mean, the matrix accreditation is important. It's an external accreditation that looks at the independence and the value of what the colleges offer. Certainly the colleges represented here today have their matrix qualification in place, and I think that certainly it's a qualification that across the board, an external validation across the board, could be used with other organisations to make sure that they're also providing independent advice and guidance.
The caveat the colleges represented here today, the caveat was the colleges represented here today, is that a reflection on the other 4, or?
Sorry, Chair, it's certainly in terms of all the colleges, we could come back to you on whether they're all in regards to the status. They may be in a period of being reassessed at the moment.
And finishing this point is, our primary goal is to achieve a model of 1419 that serves as an alternative to traditional academic route, with emphasising high quality education with labour market relevance. How do you ensure that?
I think there's 2 points I would make in relation to that, Chair. One, the qualifications must be fit for purpose. And I think one of our concerns is to look at what's happening, and I say it, in England presently, where, and there is a danger that policy in Northern Ireland will ultimately be dictated to, dare I say it, by Westminster policy. And I'm sure something that members would not want to see happening. We have seen changes in relation to the provision vocational education following the Wolf Report in England, and that has implications for us by way of awarding bodies responding to what's happening in England. But that has consequences for us. It has consequences for us in the context of what might fall out of the Youth Training Review and the Apprenticeship Review. So we're very conscious of that, and we need to ensure that when it comes to the qualifications, that they are fit for purpose, and they're fit for purpose for the needs of the Northern Ireland economy. Now, with that, also we also ensure that the engagement with local employers, it must be improved. We're the first to acknowledge that. So qualifications are one aspect of that. We must have employer engagement. The fact that apprenticeships will ultimately be driven by the demand needs of the economy, that by itself is an indicator that young people will be making choices based on what they're saying by way of opportunity across the economy.
Pat?
Good morning. You're very welcome. In terms of, I think the Chair's comments is appropriate, given that we've just went through a fairly intensive careers and guidance. In terms of the young person, certainly, and somebody at 16 years of age, maybe, particularly when they come to the college with no academic qualification, there's a level of uncertainty in terms of going forward. And a lot of the times they're being persuaded by their peers or by their parents in particular to stay with education. So what type of discussion takes place with the parents in terms of guiding them along a road and a journey for their child?
If I could perhaps start off with that one, Pat. We again come back to my approach that the pre-entry activities that colleges are undertaking, we very much encourage parental involvement at that early stage, and many parents do respond to that. That's again about communicating. We also need to improve how we actually communicate whilst students or young people are on our programmes of study. We use various tools in that regard. We do have, dare I say it, the parent-lecturer type engagement mid-year through programmes, so that again we are providing progression opportunities, but we're also keeping them updated of future progression opportunities once they're on programmes. And again, there will be a variation in practice across colleges again, but I come back to the point that we are collaborating on a number of fronts, and we do look at best practice within FE so that we can try and impart and share that, so that there is a level of consistency when it comes to the pre-entry advice and guidance and ongoing careers education advice within colleges.
If I could also make the point, Pat, that it's also very important that there is that close engagement between schools and the FE colleges at that earlier stage for pupils, maybe at the age of 14, who are in the process of beginning to make choices, and they need to have that range of information available in terms of what career options, what pathways, what progression routes are available in the future, as opposed to those decisions maybe being taken at the age of 16, because there's that gap, there's that age range between 14, 15, 16, where that plethora of different options which are available and progression routes available for young people, that the careers advice is particularly pertinent at that stage, and it does require collaboration and partnership between the various agencies and partners who would be involved.
Yeah, I think it is hugely important, this progression route, to ensure that a particularly young person, because too often I have to say, you know, in my own constituents, I hear it in others, you know, young people going into hairdressing and there's no careers at the end of them because there are no jobs at the end of them, and there seems to be an overcapacity of those type of courses where people are not being pointed in the right direction. So certainly I would encourage you, I think you've got to refocus and have a targeted resource to ensure that young people have a personalised, tailor-made careers guidance, because, you know, for the amount of time that we spent, and that was one of the key elements to it, that young people are getting the wrong guidance at the wrong time, and it could end up a life-destroying exercise for a lot of them as well.
I would make one further point, Chairman, and that is that in the context of, again, coming back to the youth training and level 2 provision, that it won't be a one-size-fits-all. Because of the points I made earlier about the diverse needs of young people at that point of entry at 16 years of age. Some know exactly what they want to do by way of a career path, and therefore that will have to be facilitated through a training programme. Others will have to actually be provided with opportunities to sample and look at a range of different provision to therefore make a more informed choice. And it comes back to Jerry's point that one of the main benefits of that engagement with schools at 14 to 16 is that those young people are indeed making more informed decisions when they leave school following GCSE, having sampled a range of vocational areas within the 6 regional colleges.
If I could just add a wee point there as well, Pat, just on the career side of things. I sit on a marketing managers working group, which are the marketing managers from each of the 6 colleges, and we meet on a monthly basis just to discuss different ways of marketing what we do and how to attract, you know, learners into the colleges. And as part of that, all of our full-time student open days took place within a 3 or 4 week period this year, really to condense everything and help with the marketing campaign for FE. And as part of that, we do go out to schools as well and give talks, and I suppose historically it would have been a lot of the marketing managers going out and doing those talks, but we've changed the way we do things now, and we actually have the careers advisors from the colleges going out and doing those talks, and I think that's helping students, parents, etc. make more informed choices. And as you say, it's really important that when you're getting this advice to do an FE course, that you have that advice in terms of what jobs or what labour market information is available.
Well, that's certainly most welcome. My final question in terms of the employer engagement that, Brian, you talked quite often about, you know, that needs to be intensified as well to ensure that the end product, either in terms of placement or opportunities of work, but particularly with the public sector, is there a change of mindset going on in terms of the youth training, but also, I suppose more importantly, the apprenticeship programmes and the high-end apprenticeships that the Minister's hoping to formalise?
It's too early to say, perhaps, is the best way of answering that, Pat. There are many, many challenges ahead. I mean, I come back to the issue of placement, and we need to be very careful. And this is one of those issues that Jerry made reference to. Within youth training, I've said that the issue of placement is an absolutely vital component of any level 2 training programme. Yeah. When we start talking about the apprenticeship review in a moment, clearly employers taking on apprentices, there is a challenge, therefore, to those employers. Do they take on young people with placement at level 2, and do they offer an apprenticeship? So we have to look at mechanisms whereby we actually can have a much more structured approach to this issue of placement and leading on to, dare I say it, opportunities for progression to apprenticeships. So that remains a challenge, there's no doubt about that. Have we got all of the answers to present to the committee today? I don't think we have. But we've got some suggestions to make in relation to perhaps the brokering. And we are very conscious that the fact of our economy based on micro-business SME sectors, there are many challenges that those small companies will face that the larger companies do not face when it comes to actually having well-structured and planned placements because of the resources that they have available to that. So we have to work with them in a much more constructive way to actually bring those clusters of SMEs and micro-business together to actually encourage and work with, in a structured way, the opportunities afforded to them through a placement.
Thanks very much, Chair, for the time. And just we keen to see how that progresses, particularly maybe after the summer when your commencement of a new recruitment campaign is up. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Bronwyn?
Thank you for your presentation. Just a general question. Do you feel that just have the capability of meeting the needs of the economy? Are there any potential weaknesses maybe that would need to be examined?
If I could make a comment, I think the colleges are well resourced. We are well resourced not only in the physical side of new build, and really we very much are geared up to meeting industry's needs. That doesn't mean to say that future investment is not needed. Of course it's going to be needed in terms of the physical infrastructure. Let's look also at the staffing. And again, when we look at the lecturing staff employed within colleges, I make the point that all, or certainly the vast majority of lecturers within FE colleges employed to deliver vocational training have that expertise by way of industrial experience. They also have the requisite qualifications set down by the department. That's a requirement. So certainly we believe that we have and are very much resourced to meet the current and the future needs of the economy. Obviously evolving in new areas such as renewables and sustainable technology, they're areas that colleges are gearing up towards in a number of fronts. Again, the investment by way of physical infrastructure, but also upskilling and ensuring that the personal development plans within colleges are reflecting of the future needs of colleges to be able to respond to the local economy. So we're very much geared towards looking to the immediate needs, but also future need.
If I can add to that, I think that some recent examples show how we actually adapt and change to the needs, building new qualifications. So I know that the Minister presented on the Assist IT programme and the work that we're doing around the IT to this committee, but actually programmes like the Assured Skills are delivering high employment rates, 100% success rate in our Cloud Academy, for example, into the IT industry, addressing the IT skills shortage and building the opportunities for Northern Ireland. So the colleges are very responsive where there is a specific skills need. The new strategy on engineering skills will see things like aeronautics manufacturing opportunities coming out of that. But I think it comes back to Pat's point, is making sure that the message about those skills opportunities and the linkages between the colleges go back into 14-year-olds so that they understand the pathways to that employment. I think that, however, there are risks, and Brian touched on that earlier. I think that some policy shifts in England around qualifications could have an impact in Northern Ireland in allowing us to adapt and change. Recent paper by BIS in March on the reform to vocational qualifications through to 2020 outlines a pathway that is for England, and I think that there may be opportunity to look at whether that pathway is right for Northern Ireland. There may be components, and to date the qualification structure has meant that we've been able to adapt to deliver offshore wind farm training, etc. And I would be concerned, could we continue to adapt in that fashion if changes come within the 4 nations that we use the UK qualification? So it's a matter of looking towards the future and sustaining what we're doing currently.
Sammy?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Brian, I think you had mentioned earlier on about the needs of young people, particularly in terms of literacy and numeracy. What is your experience, I suppose, in terms of asking in terms of your success? Because I know some organisations who would try to work with young people who I've described as not even hard to reach, at times impossible to reach. And one of the major issues would be the literacy and numeracy.
Yeah. Just again, come back to some of the figures, of those 9,000 level 2 students and trainees that the colleges are actually supporting presently. The vast majority again, to highlight this point, the vast majority have a deficit when it comes to literacy and numeracy. So therefore, the colleges are committing a significant level of resource to ensure that the essential skills provision is offered to them. We also offer them the opportunity, in the case of FE, repeat GCSE, still recognised, dare I say it, as the gold standard. So we still view that as an important development for many of the young people. So we are very much committed to that. You know, we look at our success rates, and success rates in essential skills across the 6 regional colleges continues to improve year on year. And again, this is recognised in recent inspections. I think it's Justin, you can correct me there, but certainly success rates of 75% plus in relation to those young people coming through from 16 years of age. And you're right to highlight there are many, many challenges in relation to the fact that these young people have had 5 years of post-primary education, yet when they're coming to us, we have that one academic year, if you like, to actually get them up to a level 2 standard. So it's many, many challenges that we face, but certainly I would believe that as a sector we have responded very, very well to the needs of those young people, and will continue to do so.
I think you also mentioned earlier on about the dropout rate as well. I was speaking to a parent last week, and she was saying that her young fella had done his 2nd year of vocational education and training, and the first year very enthusiastic, but a number of young people had dropped off, and it seemed to be that the interest, the enthusiasm of the course itself had diminished. So how do you deal with that when you get a class like that, and maybe a particular range of young people just decide to opt out?
It's again, you know, there are a range of retention strategies that colleges and curriculum managers will use right across the sector. I think the primary objective is to identify those at-risk young people at a very early stage within a programme, be that through monitoring their attendance, again sitting down and providing the pastoral care on a one-to-one basis. So these are the things that colleges are doing on an ongoing basis. But retention, yes, it's an issue for us right across the 6 colleges. And it comes back to that point of effective pre-entry advice and guidance, that if the young person understands what the programme entails, is informed in relation to the progression opportunities, that by itself will hopefully help motivate that young person to succeed on the programme. And for many, and the majority, it certainly does work.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Ali. Fran?
Sure, and I have to apologise for missing the early part of the presentation that got called out. But there was a couple of things I wanted to pick up on. One that Justin had raised in relation to changes coming in terms of England. And I think the more information that we have on that, the better, and it allows us to keep on top of whatever changes may be coming down the road that will affect us. The other, and I know that it can't be easy, and we have argued here for a while in relation to the 2-year apprenticeships and the impact that, especially from the electrical and engineering end of it, that it wasn't recognised by the leaders in that industry. But there has to be a happy medium found, and I agree that there needs to be that fully qualification. One of the things that I have said in the past is that I have a number of friends who are fully qualified. The electricians, and the most precious things in their lives is their badge, and that is recognised worldwide. And I think that's what we need to work to achieve. I disagree, and I can understand what Pat's saying, but I disagree to certain degrees. And sometimes when we try to promote the whole question of advanced apprenticeships, that we're in danger of rubbishing all the rest of the apprenticeships that are out there. I think that there are many people who thrived and survived on what we would call the traditional trades of bricklaying, carpentry, electricians and whatever, and I include that. Hairdressing was my daughter's hairdresser. She actually done 2 years at college on leisure and tourism and hated it. Her great passion, and then that was mostly her parents pushing her to go in to get a good degree, and she went back to what she loved best, and that was hairdressing. So people need to be given choice. Yeah. On how they do it, and that's why you need to find a happy medium there that allows young people to compete in it. And if hairdressing is one of those that's been chosen, then well and good.
Okay, Fran. Response there, folks.
Sorry, go ahead. Just.
If I make a point that's both the youth and the apprenticeship, I think that out of all the education and training programs available, the great thing about youth training with work placement and apprenticeship, the key thing is that it is welded to the skills needs of the economy. If there are jobs there and there are opportunities there, then the colleges can respond because the placements are there and the work opportunities. And so the choice of the curriculum, therefore, then fully ties back. So the opportunities in hairdressing and moving that into training and apprenticeship are there with the skills needs. And the colleges will always have a role in those qualification areas, as well as maybe the advanced manufacturing, including the IT. So I think that the breadth of curriculum can be fully sustained where the employment opportunities exist.
If I could make one further comment for the issue of level 2, and again I reiterate the point that there are many young people who come in at 16 years of age and know exactly what they want to do. At a level 2, exiting a college or a training provider with a level 2 qualification, be it in painting and decorating or brickwork, whatever, that may well be sufficient for them to obtain a good job within that particular sector. But you're right, when we focus on the higher apprenticeships at level 3 and above, whilst the objective, I suppose, is to try and raise that profile and importance of apprenticeships, we should not neglect the fact that level 2 provision in those areas is equally important to the local economy.
Sure, I could just come back on that, and I think it's important. I think that what we need to do is to fit the needs of,
yes.
As you said, future industry, I think, but also we also need to fit the needs of what there is there at present, and at the end of the day, I recognise whether it's a badge or a chip that is recognised within industries, and that people can achieve that well and good. But what we need to do at all costs is to equip people for the future, and I think that's the important thing.
Okay. Chair, sorry, if I may, in terms of the other point, in terms of qualification changes in England, just to outline what we're seeing as some of the potential issues arising in the document, Getting the Job Done, which has come out of BIS in England. It actually states that adults will undertake GCSE Maths and English, and currently in Northern Ireland the essential skills is a key important literacy and numeracy agenda in tackling literacy and numeracy related to the vocational area. So there is some policy shifts coming from that information which may have an impact in delivering some of those skills agendas and meeting actually the needs of people in vocational areas and addressing their literacy and numeracy needs.
Sure, just to come back on that, I think the important thing there is that there is a need to look at how that's delivered. Because if you're talking about in terms of adults, many of them will not go near the colleges, but what they will do is if there's a satellite there within the local community, that will provide the backup and background for people to go through.
Okay, thanks, Ron. David?
And just sorry on that, Rob, we do have initiatives within the colleges to attract that type of adult returner to come back in through initiatives that Dale are supporting, like the Learner Access and Engagement Programme, which is working with local community groups on the ground to act as a hook to get those people to come into the college.
Yeah, thanks. Good. David?
Thanks, Chair. You're welcome, and thanks for your presentation. You do mention and welcome the number of reviews currently taking place in relation to needs for young people in general. You go on to say that they're obviously taking place in isolation. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, or how do you feel about the situation? Because I think we must be the department with the most reviews going on at the moment. It's a constant theme here. So, do you see
I suppose in the ideal world, we probably would have preferred to see the youth training and apprenticeships, but we can understand the department's decision in relation to the separation of those. But we also take cognizance of the fact that DE and Minister O'Dowd has carried out a similar review of GCSE and A-level. But the point that we would make on completion of all of these reviews is again for the need for both departments to sit down following the completion of the 3 reviews to set out very clearly a joint 14 to 19 framework or policy that addresses all of the points from the academic pathways, the changes to qualifications there, and through what we are promoting is this TVET model, a simplified vocational pathway that offers parents, young people, employers a simplified understanding through the use of qualifications. And just to put this in some sort of context, 27,000 vocational qualifications currently sit on the qualifications credit framework. is it any wonder that employers are confused, parents are confused, and young people? We have to simplify that through this TVET model. We may well have to be selective by way of the choice of qualifications, and so be it. But that decision and how that falls out of the 3 reviews very much has to be laid at the door of both departments. And structure.
Would you be content at this stage that that's a direction that we are going, or do you have any concerns?
Well, I think it's fair to say that through the engagement we've had with our own department, they are keen to see that happen. But we would also be a little bit frustrated to date the fact that it has not. Fair to say.
I think just on the back of those, David, those reviews that are taking place, the opportunity will be to take a more holistic view in terms of what comes through the various reviews, and in terms we've been consistent with our own department in putting forward our vision for the future in terms of that TVET model, as Brian has explained. And whilst it's not going to happen overnight, there is an opportunity to really look at the landscape and look at what is going to fit the economy now, but also the economy in the years to come, and how we'll involve employers and ensure that we've got the right level of skills for the economy and business and industry now, but also into the future. So there is a big opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, thanks very much for that briefing. Moving on then to the review of apprenticeships, which you mentioned there.
Chair, I'm going to pass across to Karen. She's going to kick things off.
Okay. Thank you. In a similar format to our earlier presentation, yes, we welcome the opportunity to present our view on the apprenticeships. The college sector submitted our consultation to DEL in April, and we forwarded to members of the committee here in advance today. And just to set it in context, over the last 6 years in Northern Ireland, there have been over 45,000 individuals who have started an apprenticeship, and the majority of those have been engaged via our colleges. In terms of our submission, there are just a few points that I would like to raise that were highlighted in our submission. Firstly, we welcome the all-age apprenticeships. We feel that it's essential that apprenticeships in the future in Northern Ireland encompass all ages and not just the 16 to 24-year-old age group. And that's really in the context of the 2020 workforce. 50% of those individuals in the 2020 workforce have already left compulsory education, and we look at the upskilling that they will require. In the future, most jobs will require higher tertiary level qualifications, so it's essential that we have a mechanism there to upskill people for those jobs in the future, and apprenticeships are one route of doing that. A second point I'd like to raise is just progression routes on to an apprenticeship at level 3. Apprenticeships are proposed to start at level 3 in the future, which we welcome. However, there needs to be a seamless progression up to level 3, as Brian has mentioned earlier this morning. Progression routes then beyond level 3. Progression routes are important at all levels, but we feel there's a need to map out all the progression paths to ensure that seamless progression can take place. And as Brian said, vocational routes are complex, and there's a need to clarify that and make it clearer in the future. In terms of the role of the 6 colleges, the colleges really play a vital role in the delivery of apprenticeships across Northern Ireland. However, we feel that colleges need greater discretion so that they can work with local employers to develop programmes that match the needs of apprentices. We've been very supportive of the apprenticeships to date as a route to skilled employment for our local people, and we're playing a very important role in increasing the uptake of apprenticeships across Northern Ireland. I think when we look at the Northern Ireland economy, we do have a very small micro business sector. 98% of our businesses in Northern Ireland are SMEs, and we need to look at how do we get more employers in Northern Ireland to engage in apprenticeships. Currently, there are about 13% of employers in Northern Ireland are involved in apprenticeships. That figure is not that much different from the rest of the UK, which sits at around 14%. But moving forward and looking at skills pipeline, we need to engage more employers and really looking at how do we address the barriers to some employers in getting engaged in apprenticeships and moving forward. And some ideas we have in that area are maybe small employers in local areas, maybe working together in clusters to support the apprenticeship programme and to upskill individuals. There are a lot of pilots going on at the minute, and I think it's important that we sort of take cognizance of what's happening in this space. For example, in England we have the employer ownerships, and we also have apprenticeship training agencies. I think there's some good practice that we could learn from there and build on when we're looking at the future of apprenticeships in Northern Ireland. And just a final point, and it was reiterated this morning, we really need to raise the profile of vocational career paths in Northern Ireland, including apprenticeships and higher apprenticeships. And this can only be achieved by employers working together with us, with government politicians, all raising the profile of apprenticeships and vocational routes in Northern Ireland. I'd now like to pass on to Justin, who's going to have a look at some of the impacts of the outworkings of the apprenticeship review and other things that are happening in the sector.
Thank you. I think that, Chair, I think in the wider view, I think we've touched already on vocational qualification reforms. I think that vocational qualifications form the backbone to both the youth and the apprenticeship training, and without a structured approach to qualifications, it is difficult to build clear pathways. In the mix of this, we have the A-level GCSE implementation group going on as well, which has an impact on decisions, particularly at 14 to 19. I think that the success of both the youth and the apprenticeship training approach and the feedback that we've given is based on our interactions with schools, particularly at the age of 14. The choices that young people made are made often before the first interaction at enrolment or transition to the college. They're made much earlier on, even pre-14. And we know that the entitlement framework and the work that the college is doing is very important in terms of that interaction. However, the colleges have noticed a trend change in what the schools are doing with the colleges. For example, we've noticed that over recent years, over the last 5 years, 11% fall in 16-year-olds entering at level 2 or level 3 into the FE sector, but a 15% increase in 17-year-olds. And we believe that this also maps across to a year 13 rise in recruitment. And going back to Brian and Karen's point earlier, the skills and the industry links that our lecturers and our teachers have are very important in making young people aware of what the skills are required for those jobs and are for industry. And if young people at the earlier age, particularly 14 to 16, are not getting that exposure, there's a risk that they don't fully understand actually what the skills will be needed 16 and onwards and beyond. So I believe that there is an issue there that the colleges face, but the wider education environment faces on the way through. I know we've touched on careers reform and obviously presented to the committee before on the careers advice and guidance. But I think that there are, again, issues in raising awareness of what is an apprentice. An apprentice is a lot more than maybe some of the traditional views taken. Apprenticeships now are becoming major routes to employment for industries such as financial services, advanced manufacturing, engineering, and providing opportunities for young people of all levels, all abilities, to move directly through to employment and employers. Certainly, employers are understanding that new world of apprenticeships. We've seen organisations like PwC, for example, and organisations like Deloitte, big names, looking at trying to recruit at high academic achievers at 18 in A-levels. And then finally, I think that there is questions around the role of higher education in the further education sector. If we are to move apprenticeships beyond level 3, we are to use the foundation degree framework. We also need to look at higher education professional qualifications that some of the industry required, and how we operate more constructively with the university sector, who often act as the awarding authority in regards to these, to build a better structure for level 4, level 5 and beyond apprenticeships on the way through. And I think these are cross-cutting themes of both reviews, both the youth and the apprenticeship review. And on that point, I'd like to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. The all-age approach to apprenticeships, what difficulties will that cause in colleges on a day-to-day basis, or do you see it as being a seamless process?
I think that, Chair, certainly in regards to all ages, the colleges have historically delivered all-age apprenticeships. I think it's a very important aspect of what we do, is enabling a full workforce beyond the age of 25. We know that the department's published document from Oxford Economics says that the workforce is already going to be in work, and upskilling is the way to make the economy work. So the colleges are very enabled, adaptable to actually provide day release for people already in employment who are looking at upskilling. There are examples across the colleges where we have worked with companies looking at next generation skills within inside that company, providing qualifications and moving the workforce to the next level regardless of age. But I think that if the apprenticeship programme just focuses on 19 to 25, we're missing a key opportunity to make the economy grow stronger.
The approach seems to be, and I know it's an issue that's been raised a number of times, is in regard to SMEs and their difficulties in taking on apprenticeships. I think what Karen touched on, where they would cluster together in SMEs. Have you any practical experience of two small businesses coming together to take on one apprentice?
If I can give our work with the IT Academy, where we have generated an apprenticeship cohort of 22 learners, which was made up of 8 or 9 different companies. Some of those were SMEs, some of those were large employers, all taking 1 or 2 apprenticeships on each, bringing them together to actually agree on a framework, a way forward, a way of recruiting, and it is a highly successful program. The program went from 22, we're now in the process of recruiting 60 this year, so it's actually found that relationship with industry, found a program that works and brought them together. I think Karen's point actually outside that IT industry extends further. The creative industry, for example, is mainly made up of SMEs. So if you look at digital media and the opportunities currently presented in the digital media market, that is often SMEs who need to be brought together in that same format, need to have an opportunity to actually build a collective programme and take on individual apprenticeships. But I think that the model is already established and we could roll it out to those other industries.
Chair, if I could make one further comment, we have to understand what the barriers are to a micro business, for example, undertaking employing an apprentice in the first instance. There are many, many issues around the fact that they have a limited resource by way of looking at the employment, selection and recruitment of the apprentice, the issues in relation to the insurance that's required to take on that apprentice, etc. So we have to look at a more flexible model, I think, to bring, dare I say it, these micro business together. And maybe that is the case of brokering some employment opportunity through a social enterprise. Maybe the colleges could act as a social enterprise, employing the apprentice, but farming out the apprentice, so to speak, with the micro business to ensure that they are provided with the realistic, again, opportunities to grow through that particular company.
Chair, if I can provide an example of that, we've through this committee, I was asked in a presentation before about the benefits of the 157 group, and through the 157 group we were able to visit Leeds College. Leeds College has actually formed one of these social enterprise opportunities. It forms as the employer, then providing 6-month apprenticeship placement to small companies, particularly in the construction and trades industries during the downturn, and then rotate those apprentices around the opportunity, sustaining the apprentice point of view, but also helping small businesses who are managing employment risks and employment law, working through those issues. I think opportunities exist, to bring a model like that perhaps into Northern Ireland.
Okay. Just, I suppose, one point that nobody else indicated on the apprenticeship side of things. Brad, do you want to? No, you're right. Just, I suppose, bringing the two, Pat.
But it's just quickly, we mentioned previously in terms of the engagement with the employers, and we look at business there, but in terms of the public sector, increasing the apprenticeship models with them, is there any discussions taking place with colleges and with the departments, or we're talking about the education board, we're talking about the health trust, we're talking about other areas where they might be meaningful, and also when the minister's talking about higher end apprenticeships, presumably we're talking about ICT and other areas that you could take on as well. So what's the thoughts on that particular end of things?
Certainly, I think we believe that there are many, many opportunities within the public sector that should be built up through the revision to apprenticeships. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. I think this will come down to one of funding. And if the Department of Employment and Learning is looking to, for example, the trusts to actually fund the actual delivery. That's an issue that, again, these departments have to sort out. So I think that to me is the key issue. I don't think it's not a recognition of the importance of apprentice opportunity through public sector, but it's how it's going to be funded.
I think, Pat, that's always been an issue, but I think if you look at the positive aspects of that and the quality of the apprenticeship experience that young people or older people could get by actually getting an opportunity to train up and reskill and upskill within a public sector environment. So I think that is a conversation we need to take forward.
Just briefly, Chair, supplement, because my knowledge of maybe 20 years ago was that in apprenticeships generally there was an incentive for the employer, particularly in the trades in the past, we need plumbing or electrician and carpentry and one thing and another. There was an incentive to take on an apprentice. You got subsistence, you get a weekly allowance. What is the standard now in terms of apprenticeship when you reference that maybe a greater emphasis might be on the employer to take the cost? So what is available now as an incentive for an employer to take on an apprentice?
Well, again, in terms of the financial side of things, the employer is expected to pay a wage. The training...
There's no subsistence towards salary cost?
There's no subsistence to salary cost. The training is obviously provided and supported through the funding that delivery agents such as a college would receive from the department, so that's covered. The employer will receive an output-related bonus on the achievement of the apprentice. So that's the incentive, if you like. So I do think that this is one of the areas that, again...
Well, what's the level of bonus that an employer can achieve?
Be up to about £1,000. It will vary depending on the different...
A year? £1,000 a year?
No, £1,000 normally on completion of the apprenticeship, so probably after 2 years. So it's not a massive amount of money. But it will vary, I think, according to the different bandings for apprenticeships.
Okay. Sally?
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick question. You mentioned about the small, medium enterprises, and obviously they're a big catchment area, a huge catchment area, and all the difficulties of a small business trying to accommodate an apprenticeship. But it was very interesting what you had mentioned about the clusters of SMEs. Could you tell us a bit more about that? Just how it works then, Brian.
Our thinking, and Justin will probably share the experience of what's happening in Leeds through the ATT social enterprise scheme, but our thinking is that we recognise the challenges that micro businesses have. Our business support units in the colleges are very much on the ground working with micro businesses, encouraging those micro businesses therefore to take on apprentices. And let's not also forget the fact that we have placements. You know, the training for success placements. We also have higher education student placements. So we have a large number of young people at different levels throughout the organisation for whom we are seeking actual relevant, well-structured placements. That includes obviously apprentices. And we believe that by trying to broker through some sort of social enterprise arrangement, that this particular agency or body or whatever would be able to better coordinate that engagement with a cluster of micro businesses. So we would be looking, for example, at, Justin mentioned about, for example, the construction sector. You may well have construction contractors, etc., coming together. It may well be the case that through that we're able to actually place an apprentice, employing the apprentice, placing the apprentice with that particular company for a particular project, but also being able to move that apprentice onto other projects within that cluster. And it's that flexibility and benefit to the young person that we believe can be actually maximised through this type of enterprise.
I think that just to build on those two issues that Brian raised, the first issue is SMEs who are availing of short-term contracts in business through the construction sector, and moving from contract to contract makes it very difficult for them to sustain an apprentice position over a 2-year period. We're discussing currently with the travel and tourism sector, because the same issue, the long-term commitment is a risk for them, and therefore engaging in the apprenticeship programme, one of the barriers would be they would like to see maybe a short-term or a shared apprentice scheme where they can rotate apprentices around. In terms of a successful model, as I mentioned already, the IT apprentice, where we've actually brought employers together to agree a framework and get employers to work with the college to agree a qualification and framework so that they can each take on one apprentice to make a viable cohort. I think it's a model that maybe will work in the manufacturing engineering industries. It may work in other areas which aren't affected by shorter term contracts, where they are looking for longer term sustained employment or pipelines working through. So I think between between those two models there, we can build some effective approaches to building better cohorts of apprenticeships for SMEs.
Thanks, Justin. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, folks, just bringing your two presentations together, and it's one of your own facts. You've stated that 8% of the 2020 workforce has already left compulsory education, many without formal qualification. How do you see either of these two programmes re-engaging with that 8%?
I think if I may start, I think that the apprenticeship programme is a key programme to re-engage in those individuals back into work, gives them the opportunity to enter the workplace, build confidence in building wider skills like people skills, team working skills, while also still attending college on a one-day or day release or two-day-a-week basis, and actually build up the qualifications that they need to sustain that employment. I think that the apprenticeship scheme is a great scheme to reach out to those people who don't have the qualifications but want to work, are very committed and want to engage within work. I think in regards to the youth scheme, it actually steps back from that, where people are nervous even about entering the workplace, gives them the opportunity to actually see that first step into the workplace without the employment commitment, while still building the qualification, and actually start to build relationship with the employer, so the employer starts to feel confident in that person to move to the employment phase and the progression of the apprenticeship. The linkage between the two programmes, as has already been highlighted, is very, very important. That progression linkage must be retained, even though there are two separate reviews, in order to facilitate the employment opportunities.
I think, Chair, as Justin has said, that's very helpful for maybe dealing with some of the issues of those folks who are in the workforce already who don't have qualifications. But it's looking to the future, and the 14 to 19, all embrace and all engage between the departments in terms of looking at academic pathways and vocational pathways, because there will be more people who will be leaving full-time education, having gone through 12 years of education, who are maybe leaving without the relevant literacy, numeracy, ICT skills, but don't even have a level 1 or level 2 equivalent qualifications. So that conveyor belt is still happening with young people leaving education. So we'll need to deal and support those who are out in the workforce already, who are part of that workforce for 2020, but those other young people who will be leaving school. So it's not a sticking plaster approach. I think we do need to have a radical look at how our educational, vocational and academic all works together.
Chair, I just want to make one further point, and that is in relation to adult returners. And I think it comes back to the point that Farrell made earlier on, that if I use the example of an electrician, for example, that an electrician, through the carrying of the GIB electrician's card, is a recognised stamp. Why should that only be available, therefore, to a 16-year-old through an apprenticeship programme? If an adult, through a reskilling programme, can also obtain the same qualifications, the expertise, the knowledge that is required for them to fulfil that particular role, that's something that has to be built into any future apprenticeship model. So the issue of reskilling is an important one.
Okay, Sammy, you were looking in there.
Chair, I think the question I was going to ask, and it was just something that Justin mentioned about tourism. And I was thinking about suppose this is a question for us all and for the likes of Dale as well. But the Giro d'Italia was a good example where I certainly see a big increase in cycling, and obviously there must be opportunities there for cycle mechanics, whatever, just as one example. But by 2017, tourism spend is going to increase, projections are, by a third. Maybe it's a question to Karen. How do the NI colleges gear up for that, or how does Dale gear up for that? Because obviously that should bring, and the likes, the potential, well, there will be potential for apprenticeships, as an example. How do you gear up for that sort of thing?
Again, if I can respond based on our experience at the moment, is working with employers so that they first of all understand what an apprentice is, what the apprentice comes with, what skills, what qualifications, etc., and then trying to find models of operation, not tying down the apprenticeship framework so tightly that we can't listen to the employers, and find models of operation that allow us to get young or people over the age of 25 into those opportunities. And working with cohorts of employers, I think the college being a liaison between those, a direct liaison between those groups of employers, bringing those employers together so you've got an agreed pipeline and pathway that the wider public can understand that that is a route into the travel and tourism industry. Colleges can respond, have responded to, as I mentioned before, skills shortages in the IT area. It will respond to the hospitality, catering, travel and tourism area as the demand arises. But it's that close proximity between colleges and employers that will deliver those results, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And Sammy, if I could just add, yes, there have been quite a number of important events happening in Northern Ireland recently. Circuit of Ireland, which takes place every year. We had students from Belfast Met who were studying motor mechanics who were involved in scrutineering for the Circuit of Ireland, and the young people involved in that really loved it, really getting engaged. For Giro d'Italia, we have students in Northern Regional College who are studying sports science, who are involved in the Giro d'Italia this weekend. So colleges are working very closely, with any of these events that are taking place and getting young people involved in them.
Yeah. I suppose you think of companies like Chain Reaction,
Yes.
exporting all over the world, opportunities there and will increase.
If I can mention, actually, we've had an engagement with Chain Reaction. The interesting engagement with them is actually on an IT software development need. And so the IT skills needs go across not just the traditional IT industry, but actually into industries that are affected by tourism, resale, cycle sport, etc. as well. So again, it comes back to just having that close relationship with industry, listening to industry and adapting, but getting industry to agree so that we don't adapt just to one company, but actually the wider skills opportunities.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, folks, thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I thought you were looking at
Thank
one
you.
server car outfit. He's Belfast.
I don't think. I done one last week.
Oh, here. And Napoli, you didn't have the signal.
That is Belfast video, shows you the two characters.
Okay, members, just to remind you, after the formal session, the committee meeting here, there will be an informal session with Tom Evans and Alan Scott from the Department about the Work and Families Bill, so when you stay here. Members, is there any other business? If not, members, can I just remind you, next week the committee's on a visit to Applebeat Trust, Armagh and Spermview Special School and Oak Ridge Day Centres in Gannon, so we have last, members make the most of the day available. The agenda's at page 223. A member's date and time and place of our next meeting. The committee will not meet again until Wednesday the 28th of May at the college's NI conference at the Tullyglass House Hotel, Ballymena at 10 o'clock. So, members, thank you very much. Does a good place. All right, members, meetings adjourned.
The committee